My brother inherited my father's $39 million real estate empire, while I took over his fishing boat. At least the loser gets something, he said with a sneer. I took the boat out one last time before selling it. Checking its hull for damage, I found a watertight container welded inside. The documents revealed that my father had a second secret business. I wasn't his son, but his partner. The lawyer's words still rang in my ears as we left the office. Your brother Daniel inherits the $39 million real estate portfolio. You, Adam, your father left you his fishing boat. Daniel smirked, as though he'd been rehearsing it for years. He shook my hand with mock pity, his cufflinks glinting under the office lights. At least the loser gets something, he whispered, his voice dripping venom, sharp enough to cut through bone. His laughter echoed in the marble lobby, blending with the sound of his new empire being handed to him. I forced a smile, but humiliation gnawed at me, like rust eating through steel, a rusty fishing boat against millions in property. My father had always favored Daniel, the golden son who dressed in tailored suits and spoke the language of investors. Me? I was the quiet one, the one who preferred the open sea to boardrooms, the rhythm of the waves to the rhythm of stock tickers. The next morning, I drove down to the docks, the salty wind biting at my face, as if reminding me of every failure I carried. The boat sat there, rocking gently in its berth, as worn and weathered as I felt, its paint chipped, ropes frayed, and nameplate barely legible. But beneath the decay lived memories. Fishing trips at dawn, my father's gruff laugh as he corrected my knots, the smell of salt and diesel clinging to our clothes. It had been ours, or so I thought. I decided then, I'd take it out one last time before selling it, let the sea bid me farewell, before I severed this final tie to my father's disappointing legacy. As I steered beyond the harbour, gulls circled overhead, crying like echoes of judgment. Alone with nothing but the slap of water against the hull, I felt the weight of defeat pressing in. Daniel was probably already in a high-rise office, signing contracts, shaking hands with men who now saw him as the new Drake patriarch. And me? I was scrubbing rust off a boat that was more grave marker than inheritance. But then my brush struck something unusual. The clang didn't sound like the dull thud of corroded steel. It rang hollow. I froze, my heart pounding. Kneeling down, I ran my hand across the surface. Welded into the frame was a rectangular outline, almost invisible beneath years of paint and grime. A watertight container, concealed deliberately. My pulse quickened. This wasn't part of the original design. I fetched a crowbar from the storage locker and wedged it under the seam. Metal groaned in protest. I pulled harder, sweat stinging my eyes, until finally the weld cracked. The container came loose with a screech and landed on the deck with a heavy thud, hands trembling. I pried it open. Inside lay bundles of documents sealed in plastic, a few weathered maps, and, most startling, a thick envelope with my name scrawled across it in my father's unmistakable handwriting. The sight of it nearly stole my breath. I tore it open, my chest tightening with every word. Adam, if you are reading this, then you have found what Daniel was never meant to see. The empire I built in real estate was a mask. My true business is here, hidden in plain sight. You are not my heir. You are my partner. The boat is the key to everything. My breath caught, not a son, a partner. For years, I had believed I was nothing more than a shadow beside Daniel's brilliance. My father, who had spent his life making me feel lesser, had been hiding something monumental. The ledgers explained everything. Transactions in international waters, coded entries, offshore accounts that dwarfed the fortune Daniel had so proudly inherited. The real estate empire was just a decoy. The true empire had been hidden on this very boat, entrusted not to the golden child, but to me. The fishing boat wasn't worthless. It was a vault, a vessel, a gateway to something far greater than I'd ever imagined. And for the first time in years, I felt the tide turning in my favor. But as the horizon darkened with storm clouds, another realization settled, like a weight in my chest. If Daniel ever discovered this, he wouldn't see me as a partner. He'd see me as a threat. That night, I spread the documents across my kitchen table, the yellowed pages overlapping like puzzle pieces of a hidden world. Each ledger, each coded entry, each scribbled margin note unraveled more of the truth. My father hadn't just been a real estate mogul. He had built an underground shipping empire under the guise of fishing. The catches weren't always fish. They were rare minerals pulled from remote coasts, antiquities smuggled out of war zones, and goods passed quietly through borders for clients whose names had been carefully erased from the records. But the transactions were real, undeniable, and lucrative beyond imagination. Offshore accounts, hidden vaults, coded instructions. It was all there. When I tallied the assets, the total eclipsed Daniel's real estate inheritance nearly fivefold. I leaned back in my chair, chest tight. The fortune was staggering, but more than the money, it was the message. My father had trusted me. He had chosen me to inherit not his name, but his secret. The sudden knock at my door jolted me. Papers fluttered, and I scrambled to gather them. Just as the door swung open, Daniel stood there, his tie loosened, a glass of whiskey in one hand, arrogance in the other. He gave a mocking smile. "So, little brother, how's life with the loser's prize?" I tried to steady my breath, but his eyes had already drifted past me, catching the spread of documents across the table. His grin faltered. "What's all that?" My pause was too long. "They're nothing," I muttered, moving to block his view. "Just old boat records." Daniel's laugh was cold and sharp. "You were never good at lying." He shoved past me, nearly spilling his drink, and snatched one of the ledgers. His brow furrowed as he scanned the figures. His smirk collapsed into something else. Shock, then rage. This is impossible." He slammed the book down so hard the glass rattled. "He gave me scraps, and he gave this to you." "He didn't give it," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "He entrusted it to me." For the first time in my life, I saw Daniel's polished mask of arrogance crack. Behind it was raw fury, ugly and uncontained. "You don't deserve it," he spat, stepping closer. "You've always been second best. Always. And now you think you're some kind of kingpin." His fist clenched, knuckles whitening. His voice rose, dripping with venom. "I'll destroy this. I'll take it all. Just like I took everything else." But something inside me shifted. For years I had been the quiet brother, the overlooked son. I had let him overshadow me, let his sneers dig into my self-worth. That part of me was gone now. I picked up the envelope with my father's handwriting, holding it like a shield. His words echoed in my mind. "You are not my heir. You are my partner." This wasn't about deserving, I said firmly, meeting Daniel's furious gaze. It was about being chosen, and he didn't choose you. The silence that followed was heavier than any wave I'd ever sailed through. Daniel's face twisted, hatred etched deep into his features. In that moment, I understood why my father had kept him out of the secret. Daniel's arrogance would have devoured the empire in a matter of months. I, on the other hand, knew patience. I knew the sea. I knew loyalty. The boat wasn't an insult. It had been an initiation. Daniel shoved the ledger back at me, his voice shaking with rage. "This isn't over. Not by a long shot." He stormed out, his threats echoing down the hallway long after the door slammed. I stood alone in the silence, my pulse still racing, but my resolve stronger than it had ever been. Carefully, I gathered the documents, sealed them back in the watertight container, and returned it to its hiding place within the hull. My father had kept this empire safe for decades. Now it was my responsibility. As the waves lapped against the dock outside, I whispered to the night, "I'm not the loser anymore. I'm the partner." And in that moment, I could almost hear my father's voice, carried by the wind across the dark sea. "Welcome aboard, Adam. The tide is yours now."